Hi friends, welcome to my channel. This is my first ever tutorial um, on a topic in YouTube, and I would like to start with Excel, which is my favorite application of all. And I've been constantly learning this throughout my job career, close to 10 years, and I would like to spare some time, record some videos to share the knowledge I possess. um, Hope you like it, and if you do, just do subscribe and like and share with your friends. So this introductory video is about Excel macros, as known as VBA, Visual Basic for application. So in this video we will get to know quickly how the VBA editor is accessible in Excel, and how to access different modules available in the editor, and then writing a simple hello world macro, and then saving the macro enabled workbooks, how they work differently than a standard workbook, and finally a couple of practice sessions. Okay, so let's jump into Excel. I have Office 365 installed in my machine, but basically this tutorial can work with any version that you may have: Excel 2003, 710, 2016. So the idea is to um, get to know about more about the VBA editor and writing macros. So the first we need to know where the where the editor is available. So probably you may not notice this developer tab in your Excel by default, which can be enabled or disabled from the ribbon settings. As you notice, the menu options are available here. So the developer tab is here, which can be um, seen or hidden from these tabs. Okay, so which was initially hidden, which I think it's the case with most of the versions. Yeah, so once you have the tab, you have an option on the extreme left side to see the Visual Basic editor, and the shortcut is Alt F11, which ideally makes more sense to have it accessed from the keyboard shortcut. So let's press Alt F11. So here is the Visual Basic for application window, which acts as its own editor entity, which you may not notice in the Excel, because the Excel that you see ideally is just a window with sheets enabled in front of it, and there is a editor in the background which acts like uh, a proxy for it, and with the same name, like book 1 and book 1. And you would also notice the sheet 1 is available here as a code module, and the workbook is at the overall workbook level. So each code module can be accessed by double clicking, and can be seen like this and closed, similar to that the workbook code module. But in most of the cases, the macros that you write, if they are very generic in nature, not limited to any sheet, you would probably write that in a module rather than a sheet or workbook object. So let's insert one module. So you would see a new folder called modules, in which the module 1 is placed, and there is a code sheet available. There is no certain limit on the number of books that you can add. All the code is accessible from one or the other. They are all like extended code objects per module. So let's if you don't have much code in either of module, then you can remove it. But before that, if you have any code that you want to export to a file, you can do so by clicking the yes and save it to an external file. But since it is blank, I just deleted it. And here is the code module. So how to write the code? There are two standard methods that are available in general code module to start with. One is the subroutine, which starts with a sub and ends with a statement called end sub. The method name can be anything, not necessarily a main. It can be a hello or so. When you hit enter, the end sub is appended automatically to make it a complete subroutine procedure, and you can add any number of subroutines within the same module but with different names. When you do so, each subroutine is separated by a virtual line that can be seen, and all the methods will be shown on the drop down to quickly switch between. When your code goes too high, you may find it difficult to switch between the modules, and this shortcut will help you move between the methods. You may notice the cursor is moving between them. For this tutorial, let's just concentrate on one simple method called subroutine hello. I'd like to add some code pieces, but not too complicate and make this session too heavy for you. I'll just add a simple message box statement which works as a sys out in other languages, um, print ln, things like that. So I'll just give a statement inside the message box. When you move the cursor to the next line, you may notice the uh, camel case happen automatically. VB will take care of most of the formatting unless there are any spelling mistakes that would work seamlessly. In this case, I misspelled message box, so the B is not capitalized, but when you take out that, it would eventually make the necessary correction to make it a valid um, method, and this validation happens seamlessly in VB. That's one big advantage. And yeah, this is a simple subroutine. Let's run it. To run, one quick thing to keep in mind is the cursor position. Make sure your cursor position is always inside the sub, anywhere, doesn't matter, anywhere inside the subroutine before you press the play button, which is the run subroutine or user form button. So what happens when you don't press the cursor, don't place the cursor inside the subroutine but outside? It will give you an option to choose which subroutines you want to execute. In this case, we have only one method available, so that's listed here. And if I have another method just like we added earlier, and if I'm placing the cursor outside of these two subroutines, they both will be listed to pick one of them to proceed with the execution. But on contrary, if you place the cursor inside a subroutine, the execution will start from the method first line till the end substatement, or exit happens, whichever comes earlier. So that's one quick tip. And yep, let's place the cursor inside the subroutine and let's hit the play button. You can also use keyboard shortcut F5, which is another shortcut. There you go, the first pop-up in your Excel, which is totally different from the backend Excel window that used to work with a button OK and with a simple message that we keyed in. Now to make it little fancy, you can do a simple tweak. Let's change the title and let's add another button to make it a little more functional. So when you give a comma, let me switch back. When you give a comma, it will give you all the options that are available in the method. So the first one, right after the message, the default message, I would like to add one additional button. You can look for the combinations. So I'm looking for OK cancel at one place, and then this is my title. I'm adding the title. Then you can have a help file or context and other options, but that is not required for this tutorial. So let's simplify it. So let's execute and see what happens. Yep, this is my title with your default message. There is one additional button came along with OK. Since we did not supply any functionality to handle the click events, they both work seamlessly. They just simply complete the execution, and since there is no other statement right after this, the um, execution will stop here. What happens if you give two lines? Once this execution completed, the VB should eventually move to second message box and then execute the second message. Okay, just for a change, let's close this window. Let's run the macro from this Excel. There is no other window available, only Excel, and you can't see anything from front end. But from the view option on the right hand side, you see macros. When you click on the view macros, you can see the available macros here. Remember, only subroutines will be listed here, not the function. Um, that's and that's for a reason. We will discuss more about that later episodes. So here is the method, and I click on run, and there is a keyboard shortcut for this window, which is Alt F8. Yep. So once the window comes in, just click on the macro and click run. So this is our title, our message. I'm pressing either of it. I choose cancel. Then here is another message box which is hello world again with the same title. It's because we wrote two lines to execute. Now to edit the macro, you have two options. Either you can go back to the developer visual tab, editor tab, or you can simply select the method and click edit, which will eventually take you to that subroutine. So here you can do necessary changes, and that's it. It will execute. Coming to the saving part, since all the Excel books by default get the latest format, XLS or XLSX, if you intend to save a workbook with macro enabled, then you would probably get a message like this, which says the VB project cannot be saved in a macro free workbook. If you hit yes, the workbook will be saved as a macro free workbook, which technically means the macro will be wiped off. So it will only work as a blank Excel file. So let's hit now, and the next option we should select is Excel macro enabled workbook. Now the format you notice is now changed to XLSM. Now when you hit save, the book is saved. Now if you go back, let's do one thing. Let's close the workbook and see if the workbook is accessible from our documents. And here is the workbook. Here, one quick thing you need to remember is the security of the default Excel workbooks. They are generally high, which will block most of the macros by default. So in order to run them, you need to enable the content. And if you want to override the settings for all the time, you can go to the trust center and change the settings for the macro to enable all, which is not advisable because you may end up accessing any unknown Excel workbooks which may have some hidden macros which may end up corrupting your system or file. You never know, right? So let's not do that, and let's run the macro again in our saved workbook. It works. Okay, that's it for this session. um, at your home, if you find some time, try to practice the technique I told, adding multiple subs in the same workbook, or you can access multiple modules and try to add multiple subroutines in different modules and try to access them from this window and see how you progress. Okay, let's meet in another session to learn more about Excel macros. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.